I was a very big fan of Candace Owens. I thought that she was one of the boldest voices in the conservative movement. She stood up against the mob, she challenged race narratives, and she even fought for the unborn. And I believed that she stood for faith and family and for truth, but lately, something has shifted. I mean, I've watched her just like many of you have, and she's turned. At the beginning, it felt very slow, but then it became very rapid. And then all at once, she turned on Israel, she's turned on Donald Trump, and she's turned on the very values that she claimed to at least uphold. And more importantly than all of this, she turned on the truth. Now, this episode isn't personal. This is spiritual. This is not gossip. This is my attempt to bring actual facts, contrary to what she's been doing lately, to bring actual facts that you'll be able to decipher this for your own. And I'm telling you this right now, this message is for everyone who fears God. So be careful who you follow. Always test where the Spirit is coming from behind the voice. So much to discuss. Let's talk about it. So it's no secret to all of you that Candace Owens used to be a very strong supporter of Israel. She called out anti-Semitism in the media. She spoke about, anti-Semitism, and she spoke out against radical Islam even before cultural jihad. But now, today, she accuses Israel of genocide. She has definitely flipped the script in a major way. Who she supports, what she supports. She's called the IDF a terrorist state. She says that Donald Trump has betrayed the MAGA movement because he received money from Jewish donors. Like, which president has not received money from Jewish donors, no matter which side or which political party that they were on? So all of a sudden, if you receive money from Jews, then you must be bought by Zionists. All of a sudden, these are the type of things that she's coming to conclusion on. She publicly questioned whether or not Israel should even exist in the first place. She cannot call all of these things a political shift. This is not political. None of these things that she's saying, it's not because of what's showing up inside of her feed on Instagram, as she says. It's really a spiritual rebellion against God. I'm telling you right now, there's a spiritual rebellion against God, and she's wrapped it in a political excuse. She's blaming it on her politics and being able to all of a sudden be able to come to the light and see. And I'll tell you what light she actually came to. And no, this did not start with Gaza. So get that out of your head also. This had nothing to do with what's going on in Gaza. Gaza was just the opportunity to say what she already believed. Her words follow a very deep current. It's a current that does not believe that the Jewish people have any divine legitimacy, which is precisely the opposite of what the Bible says. The Jewish people are called to be or lagoyim, a light unto the nations. God says that he made the Jewish people a holy and treasured nation unto himself. And God also tells the Jewish people that you're special, not because you're greater than everyone else, because you're the least of the nations. So the whole entire idea of Jewish supremacy is already a joke, because we have the Torah verse. We can put it in your face that says the reason why God chose us is not because we're the greatest, not because we're better or bigger than everybody else. In fact, to the contrary, God's light and his strength shows more through that which is smaller and more contained rather than that which is boisterous and proud and great, right? There's no story for the world if Goliath kills David, but if David kills Goliath, then it's worthy of a blockbuster. And this is the whole entire message that God has been given to the whole entire world in many different ways. Who's the spokesperson for the Jewish people? The guy that can't speak, Moses. If he was a charismatic speaker and he spoke great, and he was the best speaker in the world, and he goes to convince the Jewish people, they're going to say, listen, God just happened to choose the best speaking guy around, the best charismatic leader to go and usher in the new age of going into the Jewish homeland. Hey guys, what's going on? I want to tell you really quickly about an organization here in Ramat Beit Shemesh named Kol Koreh. Kol Koreh is an organization that provides essential support to kids with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. They do everything from making sure that they have personalized lesson plans all the way to advocacy, which is very important. A lot of these kids are falling through the cracks in the regular system, and a lot of of them are misdiagnosed, but Cole Correa through their assessment has found that most of the time it's just learning disabilities. Unfortunately, because of the war, people have reallocated their funds to different war efforts and misplaced families, rightfully so. But unfortunately, what it's led to is a lot of these kids falling through the cracks. And now this wonderful organization is at the brink of turning kids away. I would never advocate for something unless I was able to personally tell you how amazing the organization is. I want everybody that can, please go to colecorrea.org and make a donation. We must keep this organization open and running and being able to service all the families that they service. For a long time, when it comes to organizations, many people have asked me, but unless I know personally that I'm dealing with real people, I would never ask my audience. So again, please make a donation today to Cole Correa, that's KOLKOREH.org. And I can honestly say that you will be changing lives. Okay, back to the show. They'll say that God just chose the best speaker that he possibly can find, the most charismatic person to go and lead the Jewish people into their homeland. But we see that God doesn't work that way. So even the narrative of Jewish supremacy that has definitely come out of her mouth, speaking of Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of the holiest men to walk the face of the planet, actually, and to teach that to say that he was teaching Jewish supremacy, the things that she has been saying is coming completely out of the side of her neck. Like I said, this is not political anymore at this point. This is much deeper than that. And the truth is that it's even scary that the belief isn't just her opinion. She currently believes that God is done with the Jewish people. It's embedded to the theology that she's adopted. It's much deeper than what we thought. So let's talk about Candace's worldview right now and what she stepped into. She didn't just become a Catholic. She became a part of the SSPX movement, which is really a traditionalist Catholicism, which they reject the Second Vatican Council. And I want to explain to all of you what this actually means. And if you're a Christian and you're listening to this podcast today, listen very, very closely, because if you started following Candace Owens because you started seeing her stand up for your values and the things that you believed in, and you felt that there was a person who was giving a godly perspective towards, values that you also shared, and you started following Candace because of those values, I want you to at least listen to me in this podcast. You're not listening to a Christian. You're going to listen to somebody who is going to challenge her on what she is actually saying in the media, and I will connect it back to the new form of Christianity that she has converted to. So the Society of St. Pius X, which is SSPX, that's what the actual initials for, these people, they see the Jewish people as a threat to the divine order of God. This is exactly what they believe. They're not just conservative values or anything like that. They are theological weapons, is what these guys are. The SSXP has a long history of Holocaust denial, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. They reject the modern outreach. And I'm not talking about the outreach in terms of conversion, but the idea of having friendships basically with the Jewish people. This is what the SSPX, they actually reject this. And they still teach that Jews, even today, Jews that are here today, are responsible for the death of Jesus. So they believe that Zionism is satanic. I mean, this is all from the same church. And the Jews, get this, they believe that the Jews run global finance and they promote all the different disgusting things that I'm not going to say on air, but you can imagine the worst things that you would never let your kids watch. Any responsible adult, it's different things going on in the schools in America today. However the case is, but that type of industry, they believe communism and war, all of this, the Jews are behind it. Every single conspiracy theory that there is, another well-noted person who belongs to this and subscribes to this faith is a person by the name of Mel Gibson, and we obviously know how he feels and believes about Jews. So this worldview that she has come into is not something that she was raised with. It was by the influence of her husband that she actually converted to this religion. And all of this is the worldview that basically she married into. When Candace got married, she was not a member of the SSPX. She actually converted under the influence of her husband, actually. And all of this is what fuels her hatred for Israel. You see, I don't really know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but you'll recall and you'll remember. There was a tweet, very famous tweet that came out from Kanye West, whatever he decides to call himself, that he's going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people. Candace, for whatever reason, felt the need to come out in his defense and say that what he actually tweeted wasn't anti-Semitic, wasn't anti-Semitism that you heard over there. And she was trying to convince her audience. And rightfully so, she received a very, very big backlash because of what she said and trying to defend it. And we saw from that moment that there was this decline, so to speak, in the way that she began to talk about Jewish people, the way that she began to speak about Israel. It all started from that point. In addition to that, we start to see the decline of the morality at the same time. All of a sudden, she converts to Catholicism, this particular sect. She gets into a feud with Ben Shapiro. She writes, whatever she wrote, the big tweet that she put out at this time, Jesus is king, or whatever the case is, that got somehow viewed as being anti-Semitic. I don't understand completely what's going on. The term in it of itself is not something that I would say was anti-Semitic, but I didn't understand because I wasn't following all the exchange between her and Ben at the time. However, we started to see that she started to aggravate the Jewish people, the people that she would have on as guests. Things started to go down between her and the Daily Wire. But all the while, all this is going, she had already posted that she had converted. She began to talk about her conversion. She began to talk about the influence that her husband had on her and the conversations that they were having, which opened her up to his way of doctrine, his way of seeing the Christian scriptures. So this is what obviously influenced her. And more for you to know, really, honestly, on the SSPX, and just to give you proof that none of this, that what she's talking about is about Gaza, none of it's about Bibi Netanyahu. She probably doesn't know really too much of anything. All of the things that she's busy, it's probably up on YouTube watching conspiracy theories all day long, but that just is what it is. But by belief system, she believes that the Jews are cursed and that they have replaced them. This is replacement theology, supersessionism. If any of you have been familiar with it before, this is you're dealing with right now the beast at the head of, out of all the Christian groups that believe in this and who believe in it the most, who held to it, who stuck. And one of the main reasons why they rejected the Second Vatican Council was specifically because of this. There was a document that called the Nostra Aetate, I think it is, Astet. I can't remember exactly what it was, but this document from the Second Vatican Council basically shifted the way that the church interacts with the Jewish people, how the Jewish people are seen, and how the Jewish people should be dealt with. And that shift, along with other things, liturgical things, going from Latin to other languages and different things like that, gave grounds for this other movement to be so strong and formed, this SSPX, the traditionalists, that they rejected anything or any pope that came after St. Pius. So you have to understand that when she joins this particular sect, she has taken on every single thing that they believe, right? And so part of the things that they believe is that the Holocaust is they don't say that it wasn't, that it didn't happen, but they actually say it was maybe 200 to 300,000. And there was a bishop who they actually protected who made this claim, so many of the different anti-Semitic books. And this is very, very deep. But the truth is, let's go back even further, because I think that this is what you really need to hear. Now, if you are not familiar with this information I'm going to tell you, I suggest that you go and look this all up, because I don't want it to be that you were here and you heard this information and I just said it and you didn't look it up, you didn't look into it, and I don't want you to just take my word for it, but I want you to look into this. It goes back further, because the mindset that she's adopting here didn't begin even last year, as we all started watching this. Maybe over the last 2 years, we've been watching her dwindle and go down. But it started in the early church. So there was Origen, there was Augustine, and others who were of the church fathers who were said to have very brilliant minds, but these people were poisoned by their pride and their bad theology. These people actually taught that the destruction of the temple in 70, which is a common era, which is just about, give or take, in Jews we have different dates, but at least in the Christian world it was 770 CE of the common era, that the exile of the Jewish people coupled with the destruction of the temple, they said, the church fathers unanimously, and this spread also into the Protestant Christians, Martin Luther and others, they said that this was the proof that God was done with the Jewish people. They claim that the church has now replaced Israel. They have become the spiritual inheritors of the covenant that God gave to the Jewish people. God is now done with the Jews, and this is the proof. The temple was destroyed, the Jews are exiled, and the Jews now, because they rejected Jesus, have forfeited the covenant of God. This is what they believe. So the traditionalists, they hold on to this, all of this. And so what naturally comes about from this is that everything bad in the world has to be blamed on the Jews. And this is why, as Candace is giving over all of her rhetoric and all of the nonsense that she's talking about, there's nothing that Israel could ever do right. And there never will be, because she's now, it goes against her theology. You have to understand that it cannot be that they did anything right, that anything correct ever came out of the Jews. And the Zionist movement is now completely an enemy. This is how she sees things. And for centuries, this lie, right, has justified the Christian persecution of Jews, right? Candace has said many times, I was struck when I saw that after October 7th, she said nothing. At least for a day or two or something. And I think one of the first things that she said, we need to wait for all the evidence to come out. Right? She has no problem jumping on anything as soon as it happens. But what does she wanted to wait to see? Because theologically, she can't believe that the Jews just, happen to get attacked. It has to be some conspiracy behind it. And this is the problem with her binging YouTube late and watching all these movies and documentaries, probably with her husband, and whatever the case is. The problem with her doing these type of things is that when she goes on her program, and there's many people listening to her, and it sounds as if she's, very convincing. I don't know how today, because if you watch her today, you can tell she's acting. She doesn't look, I don't take her serious at all. But, this was the excuse, this ideology for the Crusaders and for the Inquisitions, the pogroms, the Holocaust. Everything came out of this idea that the church has superseded the Jewish people and they have supplanted them, and they are now the right heirs to God's covenant. But the problem with all of this is that it fell on its head. How did it fall on its head? And this is what Candace needs to start paying attention to. If you have been listening up until now, listen to me very, very closely. In 1948, the Jews start coming home. Israel became a state again. After 2,000 years of exile, the Jewish people returned to the land of Israel, and they're still returning in great numbers to Israel. That's not enough. There's never been any nation anywhere at any time to ever return to their original homeland after a 2,000-year exile with their national identity and language intact. It's never happened. Not only that, the Hebrew in itself, the fact that it's alive, the desert is also blooming. Cities that have risen from the ashes. All of these things that I'm saying to you are prophecies spoken by Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. All of these things are beginning to unfold, right? From 1948 until now. By this time, we're seeing robust. Israel's exporting fruits, right? We're growing. That same land that God said will be desolate, all of these things will come to pass. And here's the ticker. contrary to what the church fathers teach, contrary to what has been taught to many people over the years. Why were the Jews exiled? Why did it happen? Why was the temple destroyed? Why were we moved? God had already told us throughout the prophets. It was a rejection of the Torah, not a rejection of Jesus. That's not even a biblical statement. That's all Christian tradition. That's not even biblical. What's biblical is that the Jews were rejected because of a neglect of the Torah, a neglect of God. This is the whole mind-blowing thing here. You have to understand what I'm saying to you. This is mind-blowing when you really think about it. And suddenly, what happens? The church begins to see the whole entire replacement theology, this whole entire, it took a hit because the Jews were coming back to the land. And not only that the Jews were coming back to the land, that would have been one thing, but the land is responding in tune to what the actual prophecies are saying. What happened when the righteous heirs had come back? And this, unfortunately, at that time, especially Orthodox and the Protestants, the people that held onto this traditional view, these forms of Christianity, they got a chin check from the prophecy. That's why you see today, rightfully so, there's a lot of Christian support. Because if they're reading the Bible, how could you not? How could you not support the Jewish people? Because it's clear as day. All of this shook the Vatican. And this is what led to the Vatican II, the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s. Because for the first time, the church actually had to officially renounce the claim that the Jews were cursed. Because they saw all the blessing. And had to say that maybe God wasn't done with Israel after all. But groups like what Candace belongs to, the SSPX, they rejected that. They clung to the old life. They were very, very stubborn. They wanted to cling to the old traditional things. It wasn't just the opinion on the Jews, but that was one of the main ones. So they wanted to cling to this old lie, something that had no scriptural basis, that God had moved on. And so Candace has chosen that path. And that's why she cannot stand the modern miracle of Israel. Because deep down, she sees it as an affront to her theology. You have to understand this. So to support Israel would be to admit, she would have to admit that the Jews are still in covenant with God. And that God still has a plan with the Jewish people. And unfortunately, because she's chosen this path, her belief system cannot handle that. Hey, what's going on? I had to stop you for a second because I want to tell you, if you like what you're hearing and if you're getting value from what you're hearing, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us get this out there. And ultimately, you know what we're trying to do? Spread the name of God all throughout the world. So like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that anytime I put out a video, you are going to be informed first. And so we've seen other things from Candace that have definitely been disturbing over the last few years. I mean, Candace has also made a name for herself in her many spats with Cardi B and with other rappers and other people, and speaking about, rightfully so, the degeneracy of rap music and hip hop and it hijacking, for the lack of a better term, the black community, because that's exactly what it was. It was a hostile takeover. And it has definitely contributed. I say still today, it is probably the #1 contributor to the most of the failures in the black community, along with father absence. So Candace has been a person who's spoken out on all of these different things, the vulgarity of rap and everything else. But she does all of this, and then shortly after her supposed conversion and her coming to the light, and this is why I want you to pay attention, because all these things start happening simultaneously. And they're happening one thing after the other. And you can see really honestly that something spiritual, this is spiritual depravity going on here. Candace turns around, even in the midst of her going back and forth with Ben, whatever the case is. And on her Twitter feed, she promotes Kanye West's new album. Now, Kanye West's album was full of the same degenerate vulgarity as all the other rap. There was nothing different about the album. It wasn't one of his Christian albums or anything like that, one of his gospel albums. This was, business as usual. And on the very cover, and I don't want to mess up people's minds thinking about this, but I have to tell you because I want to make sure you have the information. On the very cover of that album was his wife with no clothes on. And this is what Candace Owens is telling everybody, go and listen to this. I don't understand how you don't see this. Even after his anti-Semitic rants and all of this, his admiration for Hitler and whatever, she's still supporting him, of course, because this all goes along with her ideology. And one of the things you can see by her, you can see by everybody else. When people hate Jewish people, they will make irrational connections and alliances with other people only on that one issue. If they don't agree with nothing else, if they hate the Jews, they'll find some way to be able to make an alliance. She said all different type of things to protect them. Maybe he's misunderstood and all these other things. Why? It's because she was benefiting from the connection. There's no doubt about it. When I look at that situation, for sure that there was some financial exchange that had to happen between them. This is my opinion, but I think it's very, very telling of that relationship, because you see time and time again Candace going out of her way to, save the day for Kanye, and rather to promote an album that was against everything that you've been saying for the last 3 or 4 years. It doesn't make any sense. Had to be that she had some other benefit. She made excuses. She platformed him. She had to have a meeting with him. She wanted to know, even as he was tweeting about the DEFCON 3 to the Jewish people. She's a woman who claimed to be a moral authority. She was backing a man who quotes Hitler. I mean, I don't understand. Same story with Andrew Tate. She did the same exact thing, and it came out that her husband and Andrew Tate have been friends for years. So Candace says that, she's against, corn. When I say change the C to a P. And but Andrew Tate, who she speaks very fondly of, she interviews him, platforms him, gives him, he made his money from that very industry that she's against. And she spoke so horribly against. And we all cheered and we were with her and everything else. And then all of a sudden, Andrew Tate becomes a hero. And only that, then she begins to defend him. Now, this is a person who brags about degrading women. He's under investigation for human trafficking. And even in a case that he has, she's defending him against the woman. She promotes his masculinity. The question is why? Because he bashes the same enemies that she does. It's an alliance. Even if the alliance doesn't make sense, even if it goes against everything that she's been speaking about for the last few years, because they are connected over this one issue, we have what to talk about. And I'm not trying to just take a hit on her personal character. I'm trying to warn all of you, because it's scary how fast that a person could change. Genuinely hurt I was behind Candace, because I watched her for years. Some of you saw this a long time ago. I didn't see it. And none of what she's talking about is coming from a place of deep spirituality. It's not discernment. It's a complete, her connecting with all these guys. It's tribalism. None of it's truth. It's all opportunities. And Candace, unfortunately, as we said, is not the same person anymore. And she has spread lie after lie. All different type of conspiracies, anti-Semitic myths. She's going with every single conspiracy. And here's the problem with a person like that. When the facts prove her wrong, she never apologizes. She never humbles herself. When she ever comes back, she repents. She ever says that, I was actually wrong about this. If you could have a guy like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is probably one, I'm sure he would love to be the biggest anti-Semite in the world, if he could be, right? Next to Hitler, right? So Nick Fuentes, if he calls you out and says to you, Candace, that you're out of your mind, you're coming up, you're making the stuff up out of the nothing, I mean, he's a, I don't give him credit, but the guy, he's an anti-Semite. He's saying, I do this, Candace. You don't do this. I do this. And even he calls her an idiot. He says, what is she talking about? This is how convoluted that all of the nonsense that she's coming up with is coming from a very, very deep, deep theological place. That it is a spiritual sickness that she's entered into. And if you see her face is not the same. If you're paying attention, her face is not the same. When I talk about all the makeup and all the other stuff, I'm saying her face is not the same. The way that she gives over information is not the same. Because it's no longer genuine. How could you support the college kids, right? You're supporting the college kids who are not only just protesting. It'd be one thing if they're only protesting, stopping Jewish kids from going to class, vandalizing the colleges, all the other things that they're doing is getting very, very physical. In many other instances where it has actually gotten violent. And your answer to this is that Donald Trump is now trying to sabotage his free speech. When it's death to the Jews, or death to Israel, free Palestine, all of a sudden Candace holds that this is free speech. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Any person that really believes in God, even if they make a mistake, they will actually say that they were wrong. She never claims that she's wrong. She says things that are out the side of her neck all the time. Things get reproven over and over again that she was making stuff up. And if she was a true servant of God, and she feared God, right, she will fear misleading other people. But unfortunately, she's doing it in the hundreds of thousands and possibly even the millions of misleading people. What does she do? She just doubles down on whatever it is. She'll move the goalposts. She'll blame the Jews more. She invokes Jesus one day, and then the next day she's cursing on the Twitter. What the F? What the this? It's just like, and I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like, if you're struggling and you struggling in your faith and everything like that, just be real with all of us. But don't profess God and all this and then start dropping, F-bombs and all this other stuff in the same breath. With like you can't. And this is what I'm trying to tell you people who are watching her, believing that she's some pillar of morality. She's really not. You have to judge people by what they exhibit. You have to be able to judge people by what it is that you're seeing in front of you. If they're representing the light of God or if they're not. So say the least, the fruit that she's bearing is not righteousness. It's bitterness, it's arrogance, it's confusion. It's all day long rants. And it doesn't take a person to be a spiritual guru to be able to feel just a little bit that it's not coming from the right place. She said at one point that she would not use her platform to talk about Jewish suffering. And the reason why she said this on Piers Morgan, she says because Christians are the most persecuted religion that there is.
The slaughter of Christians in Armenia, the arms being supplied by Israel, that the media turns the other way and says, oh, okay, but what about what about what's happening in Israel? So you know what I'm asking for? Actual equality, okay? Because it seems like this is like a special category, the special relationship that we have. I'm a Christian first, okay? And so my concerns are going to be with what's happening to Christians all around the world, because it is us. We are the #1 most persecuted religion in the world. And all Christians watching this need to realize the time is now to start speaking up, because we have been silenced about the things that are happening to us for a very long time. And the media is very clearly not our friend. When there is wall-to-wall coverage of Christians being killed in Armenia, Christians being killed in Nigeria, and the treatment of Christians in America and all across the globe today, then you ask me if I will use my platform and I will use my voice to speak about what's happening in Israel. How about that?
And I want you to think about this. Candace, who now today has become the biggest Palestinian supporter, right? She probably should apply to take over Gaza. So she's become the biggest Palestinian supporter, which by and large Anybody that lives here knows, anybody that knows the region, they know why. There's been a question that's been going on since October 7th that people have been asking who have moral clarity, because it's an obvious question. The obvious question is, why not Egypt? Why not Jordan? Why not all these other Arab nations that are around? Why are none of them rushing to take in any of the Palestinians? Why are they not rushing to take them all in? Why are they not taking in more refugees? Because even they know that the majority of these people have been radicalized jihadists. Majority. And they don't want them in their country either. What do we do in Israel? Give them citizenship, give them everything that they need, make sure that they're able to, to work, get education. So we do. But we are the apartheid. Go ask a Palestinian about their rights in Lebanon. Ask them what their rights are in Lebanon and put that on paper and look at what it looks like in Israel. Not that I'm claiming that, that everything's better, that I even agree with the way that Israel handles it, because I really don't. Now, when you have a large amount of population that wants to see you dead, I honestly don't think that we're handling everything right. But I'm just saying this is what it is. This is the propaganda that you're being fed, and you're being fed it mostly by people like Candace Owens. She goes on to say that Christians are the most persecuted, which by number, Christians actually are, because they have a large group. It's the largest 3 billion people, right? But here's the question. There's 15 million Jews. If you go back about 2,000 years, there was still also only maybe about 10 million Jews, 8 to 10 million Jews, around the time of the destruction of the second temple. So, but there's only still now, you're saying that we only had a 5 million at most increase. But if you're looking at the Chinese, you're looking at the Arab nations, 400 something million Arabs, and there's billion Chinese at considerable close numbers. What happened to all the Jews throughout all this time? They were murdered. They were persecuted. By who, by and large? By Christians. Oh, Candace, you won't use your platform to talk about Jewish suffering. That's fine. You're not using it to talk about Christian suffering either. Because if you would know that why are Christians dying left and right all over the world? Who's killing them? Islamic jihadists. It doesn't make any sense. And she will barely ever speak about Christian persecution either. Because if there's no Jews, there's no news. So instead, she would use her platform to attack Israel, and rather speaking about the very people that she is saying that she's defending. None of it makes sense. So this is why I'm asking you to ask yourself this. What kind of spirit is that? It's not a God of spirit. It's not a spirit of God. It's an evil spirit. It's an evil energy. This is the spirit of Amalek, the ancient enemy of the Jewish people. The one who always shows up when we're weak. To question if we belong. To question if God is still with us. That's the same spirit. And the truth is, how do you know that Candace has been engulfed by this spirit? Is because when does all of a sudden she have this whole entire shift? Right after October 7th, when the whole world turns against the Jews, and all of a sudden she rallies with that side of the world. But unfortunately, it's going to be to her demise. Because just like everybody else, she'll be left in the museums of those who tried but didn't succeed. So I want you all to listen to me very, very carefully. If you fear God, if you love righteousness, you need to come out from this. Stop listening to her. Don't share whatever it is that she's sharing. And I'm not saying this because I want to hurt her business. I'm genuinely telling you that by supporting her, you are fighting against God. She's no prophet. She's just a cautionary tale. That's all she is. And the war that she has is on Israel is not political at all. It's a very spiritual war. So my advice to all of you is to stay alert, to stay grounded, and above all, serve God or live trying. I'm out.